Welcome to Phil Wilson Chats with Celebrities. And here's your host, Phil Wilson.
Following his time in the Navy, Jamie studied chartered surveying at Cirencester's Royal Agricultural... I'll start again. See, I'm starting now. Here we go. Following his time in the Navy, Jamie studied chartered surveying at Cirencester's Royal Agricultural College and began his second successful career in property. He's the former owner of 17th century Grade 2 listed Kingstone Lisle Park in Oxfordshire, and it was there he spent 20 years as a church warden and kick-started the Kingston Lisle Festival Choir, receiving much encouragement from Bishop Peter, the retired Bishop of Norwich. Bishop Peter became a great friend and inspired Jamie Lonsdale to create his own personal book of prayer. Now he is concentrating all his efforts of his first love of music, and Jamie Lonsdale, the wonderful Jamie Lonsdale, we're honoured to have him on the show. How are you doing, Jamie?
Hi, Phil. Thank you so much indeed for inviting me back onto your show.
No problem at all. It's just wonderful to speak to you and catch up. It's lovely to catch up and see what you've been doing. I mean, last time we spoke, Jamie, it was September 2023, and you had just released the single Paris. Please, can you bring us up to date with what you have been up to since then?
Well, Phil, I've been rather busy, and the songs, they keep on coming to me.
Wow.
And so much so that Robert Emery, my music director, said, Jamie, we've now got 10 recordings and let's produce your third album.
Excellent.
And so on Friday this week, we're coming out releasing the third album, which I'm calling Freedom.
Yes.
Dedicating it to Ukraine and everything they're doing to protect our freedom, the freedom
Yes.
of the West, in standing up to a bully.
Yeah. And of course, with the new album there, it's got a lot of different, different tones and such like. Where do you get your inspiration from when writing an album such as Freedom?
Well, I never actually sit down and think, right, I'm going to write an album. It's more that one song hits me at a time.
Right.
And sometimes I think, gosh, I might never have another song. So each song that comes to me, I think, oh, this is a treasure from up above.
Yes.
Because you do, well, I can only speak for myself, but I never really plan to write a song. It more comes to me as a melody. And in an extraordinary way, the lyrics come at the same time.
Right.
And whilst the melody, invariably, I don't necessarily change, the lyrics, of course, I can spend a month just working on improvements to the lyrics. But invariably, as the melody hits me, that's usually the final melody.
Right, because that was going to be the next question. Do you write the melody first or the lyrics?
Yeah, and they tend to come at the same time. You know how often, you're asked to choose a color, if you want to paint a room, and the first color comes off the page and hits you.
Yeah.
And you go through all the other colors and you look at them all and you try out several and you end up going back to the first choice.
That's right.
That is how it is with my melodies when they come to me. And if I don't record, I'd be lost without my phone.
Yes.
To be able to just press the button, record. Yes. And that's what I would encourage your listeners to do. If they've got a good idea, just record it and don't let it slip away. In the middle of the night, if I wake up with a melody, it's very easy to think, oh, I'll remember that in the morning.
Because you never do.
I haven't got a clue.
Right.
Haven't got a clue. And so I really have learned the hard way, get it down straight away. And the trouble is, it's always at the sort of most inconvenient moment. I'm crossing a road, I'm in the back of a taxi.
Yes.
But get it down, and then, if necessary, work on it later. And I think this is an extraordinary album because it's so diverse.
It certainly is.
It spans the work of 2 years, really. So it ranges from Songs of Praise asked me to do a couple of hymns for them.
Yes.
And I thought it helps musically if you have a huge connection. And in that particular case, I went for patriotic and naval because
yes,
spent 5 years. I gave 5 years of my life to the Navy, and
yes,
the naval hymn was "Eternal Father."
yes.
And we sang it every Sunday, always the last verse.
Right.
So that was a lovely thing to do for Songs of Praise. And they said, please have another one up your sleeve. So I thought, well, I vow to thee, my country.
Indeed, and it's a lovely song, and we're going to talk about that in a moment from now. Now, the release of your new album, Freedom, marks the 170th anniversary of the world-famous Charge of the Light Brigade. For those listeners who don't follow history, please can you tell us about that and the significance of your album being released on a particular special date?
Well, thank you for bringing that to everyone's attention. So 1854, the Russians invaded Crimea, and this was a great threat to the rest of the West. And my great-great-great-grandfather, Lord Raglan, who was then very old, he was about 65 years old. In my opinion, he was too old to go and leading an expedition.
Yes.
Personally, I think they should have chosen a younger general. And he'd had such a glorious career fighting in the Peninsular War against France. France had invaded in about 1805. France had invaded Spain and Portugal.
Right.
And Raglan, as a young 26-year-old subaltern, was sent out and appointed to Wellington's staff, and they pushed the French out of Portugal. And Wellington's job was to keep the French out of Portugal. And Raglan and Wellington got on so well that they never left each other's company for the rest of their careers. They always worked together. So Waterloo, that day on the battlefield, Raglan was at Wellington's side, and he got shot in the arm.
Oh, my goodness.
Fell off his horse, bent the telescope that I now have.
Wow.
Can you imagine? He would have been looking
Yes.
Napoleon advancing through this telescope. I now look through the telescope. It works perfectly. And it's got this little dent in the enamel, in the ivory enamel.
Yes.
So it brings it all alive to think that he would have spied Napoleon through it.
Through that. Well, wow.
Go forward an entire career. Raglan gets promoted, and sent out in charge not only of the British Army, but also the French Army and the Turkish Army.
Wow.
He arrives in the Crimea, and what doesn't help is I think one ship is lost in a storm. So, they've got all the right-footed boots, but not the left ones. You can imagine the nightmare as a general trying to get 30,000 men out there with all the kit.
Wow, amazing.
And disease more men died of disease than actually active service. Raglan was successful, and we were entirely successful in booting the Russians out of the Crimea.
Yes.
And this is, I think, why I feel a connection today, because the Russians have reinvaded Crimea. And of course, Ukraine would like it back.
Yes.
And the awful bloodshed that follows this aggression. But you mentioned the charge of the Light Brigade. And this was, whilst we won the war, we won the Crimean campaign, 1854 to sort of 1857.
Right.
There was a huge mistake made. And Raglan said, the Russians have lost up there. They're trying to take their cannons.
Right.
Use the cavalry to go and disrupt them so the Russians can't take their cannons back.
Right.
Now, unfortunately, because he was so senior, the line of communication went through several very senior officers.
Oh, my goodness.
And two of the senior officers didn't get on with each other. Oh. So the order, I don't know whether you've ever played Chinese Whispers.
Yes. Well, I didn't want to interrupt the flow there, because I was going to say, was the message not passed on because of the Chinese Whispers?
Exactly. So each time it got passed on, it got abbreviated.
Yes.
And, take your cavalry over there.
Yes.
And they took it to the wrong valley.
Oh no.
Yes. And
disaster.
So you had two cavalry regiments charging straight into the cannons, into the wrong valley.
Yes.
And the cannons were on three sides. So the cavalry was slaughtered.
Yes.
Now, of course, it was, I don't want to shirk responsibility here. It wasn't Raglan's fault. But going back to what I learned in the Navy, it doesn't matter if the officer of the watch makes a mistake. The captain actually has to take the rap for it and gets court-martialed. The captain takes responsibility. In that same way, Raglan took responsibility.
Yes.
And actually, he took it to heart.
I bet he did as well, yes.
I'm sad for him, because after a great career, he suffered depression.
Yes.
And he died out there within 12 months. Oh, and I feel sad for him, because it wasn't his fault that his order was misunderstood. Yes, he could probably have been more particular.
Yes.
And so, yes, I'm not ducking that issue.
Yes.
But for a great general, he was much loved by his troops. I've got walking sticks made by his soldiers from an orchard tree outside his headquarters. And they used to tie the horses when they came to report to the tree. And his soldiers would make, I've got one made from the Battle of Balaclava, which was a battle he won, which was very significant. And then another, which is from an apple tree, absolutely beautiful stick. And of course, being an old man with one arm, because one arm had been shot off at Waterloo.
Yes.
He probably needed a stick to get around.
Definitely.
And so when I use that stick now, gosh, it brings me close to him.
I bet it does as well. Now, next time you come on the show, have you got the the telescope in storage, or is it in a glass case somewhere?
That unfortunately is at the bank. And
I thought it would be, yes.
It was just too significant. You can't have it lying around the house. And
no. It's in the vault.
But I have got the sticks, and they give me great pleasure. I've also got Raglan's hair.
Wow,
yep.
Amazing.
Because I've also got Wellington's hair.
Wow,
yeah,
amazing.
And it was one of the romantic things. I mean, you might say, well, it's not very romantic to have it's under your hair. But it was a tradition when you went off to do battle.
Yeah.
I don't know whether soldiers ever do that today.
No.
But I think it is a lovely thing to do, is a lock of your hair and you give it to the one you love.
Well, I've heard of that. I'm sure there's people, I don't know whether they still do it now, but there's some people when they have babies, they cut a little bit of a lock off and they keep it. I don't know if it goes on now, but I remember when I was at school in the 80s, I'm sure somebody said that they'd had a lock of hair took off.
Yes. But well, I think it's a tradition that should be restarted.
That's right. And then keep it in the vault with your other belongings.
That's right.
Your treasures.
And do you know something that I find really quite emotional? When Raglan died in his headquarters, the French general was in the room at his death.
Wow.
And he said he cried, the French general cried and cried for his love of Lord Raglan. And he picked flowers and put them on the coffin.
Oh my goodness.
The funeral.
Yes.
They had the equivalent of a state funeral out there.
Yes.
All the soldiers you can imagine, very moved at the death of their commander.
Yes.
And the French general sent the flowers back to Lady Raglan, who was in Wales. And she kept them, and I have inherited them down the line from her.
My goodness.
And, they're still there. They're now dried flowers.
Yes.
So these all give me a very strong desire to write my main song on the album. The album is called Freedom, but the main song I have also called Freedom. And I wrote it to promote the morale in the front line.
Yes.
Of Ukraine. The soldiers have been watching on YouTube Freedom.
Yes.
And some of them have been watching it 30 times each. I think we got to about 8.5 million views.
Oh my goodness.
And why I was so fortunate was because I asked in my local post office in the village here, how do I get in touch? I'm writing a song, and it'd be lovely to have some Ukraine refugees singing with me. And somebody in the queue said, oh, I know Uliana. I'll put you in touch. So Uliana rang me, and she said, we'd love to take part. She got 40 Ukrainian refugees, all living within the village.
Wow, amazing.
We had grandmothers, mothers, children. We took a local school hall. We filmed it, recorded it, and it was quite emotional by the end of the day. And
I bet.
I'm very glad that I get reports back from the front line.
Yeah.
Because they are having a miserable time. There's no alcohol. They're very rarely allowed home. there's exhaustion.
Yes.
And for them to be able to watch this video and hear the song Freedom
Yes.
has boosted their morale. They say more than their own government propaganda. And
Right.
I never expected
No.
to reach them. So it's been a blessing.
It is, and it's an amazing song as well. Now, the album Freedom is produced, conducted, and arranged, as you said, by Robert D.C. Emery, the National Philharmonic Orchestra of Great Britain, and the National Philharmonic Chorus. What was it like recording with an ensemble of such great talent?
Well, it's always been a delight. I mean, I've been working with Robert Emery now for 10 years, and
Right.
it's all his fault. I wrote my first song called Streams, and Robert said, "Oh, Jamie, I didn't even know that it was my song. I thought I'd probably heard it somewhere." And he said, no, Jamie, this is your song. And he said, what's more, when you've written 10, we'll do your first album. And I said, Robert, I'm sure I'm a one-song wonder. That's all you're going to get. And we had a bet on it, a pint best.
Yes.
Probably best Newcastle ale.
Newcastle Brown Ale.
It's cost me a lot of pints since then, because the songs keep on coming. I'm so grateful to him, because he was the one that really took the ceiling off.
Yes.
And said, Jamie, you can do this if you just reach out.
Yes.
And I'm grateful for the inspiration. And of course, his role is to come up with the most amazing orchestrations, because I know the limitations. My pay grade is singer and songwriter.
Yes.
What he brings to the table is full orchestrations using an orchestra of between 60 and 80 players.
Wow.
And the National Philharmonic Orchestra, amazing, in Abbey Road Studios, and then a chorus of professional singers singing in the choir. And that brings my songs alive.
I bet it's really, really good recording at Abbey Road as well, especially with the acoustics that's there and everything.
It's very special. And of course, where I'm lucky is that there are 10 songs on the album Freedom.
Yeah.
And I'm very lucky to have friends with beautiful voices. So Mary Jess, who won X Factor in China, she sings 2 duets with me. Oh Holy Night, which I think is everyone's favorite carol.
It is.
And Across the Sea, which is a song that I wrote about long distance love.
Right.
And how difficult and painful that can be when you're separated from the one you love. And I sort of felt that very strongly in the Navy, where as a sort of 19-year-old, I was sent to sea for 3 months.
Yes.
And it felt like a lifetime.
I bet it did.
Because the love of my life was at university in London. And, they always say first love is very powerful. I would not say the greatest, but it is very powerful. And that inspired me to write Across the Sea about that long distance love separated by the channel.
Yes, it's a beautiful song, and the story definitely is told there in the lyrics and the lovely melody as well. Now, your single "I Vow to Thee, My Country" is a song which is on your album, which you mentioned, which is a great beginning because it's the first track on the album, of which you performed, as you mentioned, on BBC Songs of Praise in 2021. Did you find it was important to include this on the new album?
I did indeed, because I feel it's very much close to my heart. You know, when you're 18 and you decide to join the armed forces,
Yeah.
it comes from a deep place within. You're risking your life every day, and it's something you can't quite explain. And for me, I had a deep sense of patriotic pride. I think it had been drummed into me by my grandmother.
Yes, indeed.
From about the age of 6, you know, she was telling me that I had to join the army. And of course, the rebel in me joined the Navy instead, which she eventually forgave me for. But it seemed natural when Songs of Praise rang up and said, you know, would Jamie sing on Songs of Praise down in Plymouth?
Yes.
It seemed an obvious choice, with the naval hymn as well, "Eternal Father, strong to save."
Yes. But yes,
it was actually during COVID, so we were not allowed a congregation in the church, and we had to be at COVID
the distance.
Yeah,
that's right, 2-meter distance or whatever it was at the time.
That's it.
I did actually catch that performance just before speaking to you today, Jamie, and I was thinking they normally do, you know, the visuals when they're doing. The directors probably set up the shots and said, because they normally film like the congregation and have the words on the screen and see people singing, but it was just yourself. the you know, your singers next to you, you know, at the distance. I wondered what was going on there, Jamie.
Well, originally, when I went down there, I had been told that we were going to be on the cliffs overlooking the dockyard.
Oh, right.
And by the time, you know, my train pulled in to Plymouth,
yes,
the storm had brewed. It was a tremendous storm. And so they had to search around rather hurriedly
yes,
to film indoors, and they found the most beautiful church.
Yeah.
And that's in the end where we took shelter.
Excellent.
So it was quite a wonderful feeling, because everyone it was all slightly unplanned.
Yes.
Of course, they plan it very specifically, the actual intricate filming. But
of course,
when you actually change the location, it changes the feeling. And I think it was the richer for it. And
definitely.
They said to me, Jamie, now that we have you on tape, you will never lose us, because we will constantly be regurgitating this every remembrance.
Excellent.
And they rather kept to that promise. And so it's very nice that occasionally friends get a shock when they turn the television on a Sunday.
That's right, and see you on there. But yes, it actually does. It is it's as if it was set up that way, because it does actually look very, very good, and it draws you in. Because instead of having shots of the congregation, people are able to concentrate on what the song's all about, and draw it in, like breathe it in,
Absolutely.
drink it in, as they say.
It becomes more pointed, really.
Definitely. Yes. But yes, you'll have to search for that on YouTube. And also, don't forget, listeners, that we have spoken together, me and Jamie, last September. So get yourself over to celebtv.co.uk and you can watch the video again. You can find out all about the history of Jamie's ancestry and things, because we did touch on a little bit of it there just for a moment. Now, some listeners may not know this, but that the melody of I Vow to Thee My Country was used for the 1991 Rugby World Cup hit for Dame Kiri Te Kanawa, The World in Union. Would you consider singing that version to unite the world, Jamie?
Do you know that's actually a very good question, Phil, because
Yeah.
the world has never needed more to be united.
Yeah.
And I feel that my message of the album Freedom is to, in quote, press for peace.
Yes.
The time has come. We're just descending into wars
Everywhere.
everywhere.
It's scary.
And we seem to have lost the art of dialogue, diplomacy.
Yeah.
And I think that there should be far more give and take.
Definitely. Definitely.
Compromise is my key word of 2024, whether it's at the family level,
Yes.
where we see far too many divorces,
Of course.
at the national level and the global level.
Yes.
You know, let's all basically take a step back and find common ground.
Definitely.
The only wall that we need is on poverty.
Of course. Because that is always forgotten about.
Absolutely. That's where we should be focusing our wars.
Definitely, definitely. So would you sing that song then? Would you sing Kiri Te Kanawa's version at all? Because the message is in there.
If it's good enough for her, it's certainly good enough for me.
That's right. You'll have to get the karaoke version then. Get practicing.
Yeah,
Maybe release it on your next album.
Yes. Yeah, quite. Thanks for the idea, Phil.
There you go. Hey, you see. Maybe you can put a little credit as suggested, inspired by Phil Wilson.
Yes. Right.
Excellent. Yes,
Many
I like
witnesses.
Indeed, yes. I like to give ideas to people, you see. But it's just a lovely song, lovely message. Now, the poignant single Freedom, featuring the Ukrainian refugee choir, features on the new album, and White Doves of Peace with the Bedford School Chapel Choir and Alexander Ollison featuring the Chelsea Pensioners. What was the collaboration like with all of these people?
Well, this was extraordinary because when I wrote the song,
Yeah.
I had no imagination that it would involve so many people. And this is where Robert's so good, because he says, well, what about?
Yes.
And I think we were particularly fortunate that the Chelsea Pensioners said yes.
Yes.
And because they are an inspiration and they have a choir. So we went and we weren't going to ask them to start traveling it halfway across the country. So
No.
you know, I went to them and we filmed them in their own chapel, and they're glorious. The Bedford School Boys Choir, other end of the age spectrum, in their school chapel, and they were lined up exactly the same as the Chelsea Pensioners. And the cameraman did a sort of rather special trick where one sort of minute they were the boys singing, and gradually, with a bit of blurred camera, it was suddenly Chelsea Pensioners. And that I feel was a very clever camera move. Again, Robert's idea. He's a clever guy. And Alexander Ollison was the BBC Young Singer of the Year, who happened to then be in the Bedford Boys School Choir.
Right.
and such a phenomenal voice. And so once again, Robert said, shall we get into do a solo? And within the song. And
Yes.
I think that is the special moment of the song.
Yes, definitely.
And it's all about peace. That's Doves of Peace, and aligns with my song Freedom.
Yes.
And the other song, Off to War, which I wrote for my great uncle, Norman Somerset, who was killed at Ypres in 1914 within a week of landing
Oh my goodness.
in Europe. And I wrote Off to War. I spent about a week looking through his scribbles from the trench.
Right.
And from when he was about to sail, he wrote, Dearest Mama, today we saw the enemy for the first time and we chased them down the road. And he had no concept of how bloody it was going to be.
Yeah.
And of course, many had been killed within a month.
Yes.
It was a completely different type of war. And he was shot by a sniper.
Oh my goodness.
His parents and my grandmother never quite got over that. So there are 3 songs of the 10 that are to do with war and peace.
Yes.
And if it makes anybody in the world think twice.
Of course.
There's a choice. We're at a crossroads. Either to dialogue, diplomacy, and compromise, or the easy route, warfare.
Yes, that's right.
And it begs all sorts of questions. Should we be selling arms to all these countries? And I really think we should question the drive for profit.
Definitely.
I think it all needs... I wish United Nations were much stronger.
Yes.
I don't feel they fully step up to their role.
No, I think selling weapons, and then once you've, to be graphic, unfortunately, after all the bloodshed, then you have to pay to build the countries up again. So it really is a circle of just, it's pure madness. But everyone's got their own opinions, and it's not the opinion. I can't get involved with the opinions of this on this radio station, but it's just, it is madness. That's all I can say. That's my personal feeling on that one.
Yeah. So my message is press for peace.
Definitely. Press for peace. Yes. Keep that in your mind there. That's the mantra. Press for peace. Now, Across the Sea, you mentioned Mary Jess. She features on that particular song. How did working with Mary Jess come about?
Well, I think that was my lucky day. I had a Valentine's concert in London, and I needed a soprano for the concert, and I naturally went to Robert and said, who would he recommend? He said, particularly Mary Jess. And sometime before, she'd been walking down the street in, I think, Shanghai. It might have been Beijing. And she was with a girlfriend. She was at university there.
Right.
And there was a long, long queue outside a theatre. And she said to her friend, what are they all queuing for? It's a talent competition.
Right.
Their equivalent of X Factor. And so Mary Jess, without further ado, joined the back of the queue, won that first round.
Amazing.
Then won the second round, then the third round, and then all on television and national. And she became, the Chinese X Factor. and
Yes.
she's very, very popular there. She's always in demand, and I'm told that in one concert, I think she had about 200,000 people
Oh my goodness, amazing.
live, and it
Yeah.
went to millions on television.
Yes.
She's very modest. She's a lovely person, and she's got the most beautiful voice. And so I've had great fun recording across the sea, and I'm indebted to her for agreeing to do it. And also, Oh Holy Night.
Yes, that is a beautiful song as well. Now, your current single, Revolving Doors, features Krisirie as a lovely addition to the album. What's it all about? And it looks like in the video it was filmed in the tropics. Could you tell me about that, Jamie, and the listeners?
I can indeed. I wrote Revolving Doors in an attempt to encourage couples,
Yeah.
particularly married couples, with young children,
Yeah.
to stay together. You know, relationships are always testing,
Yes.
and you know it always needs work and investment by both sides.
Yes.
And the trouble is, when one side is no longer interested,
Yeah.
it can fall apart. And it's very easy, particularly with hungry divorce lawyers circling,
Exactly.
to end up in the divorce court. And I see this happening all over the world. Somebody told me yesterday, I have no idea whether it's correct, that 73% are now getting divorced.
Unbelievable. It's crazy, isn't it?
It's very sad. And
Mm-hmm.
whilst I am a divorcee myself, I'm saying don't do as I do, but do as I say. And
Yes.
what I noticed in Barbados, where I spend a lot of time, is that many, many people are getting divorced, and they're friends of mine, and they don't realize how devastating it is for the children.
It is. Yes, of course.
And so, from the pain that I went through, from what I learned,
Yeah.
my positive message is to write a song called Revolving Doors, saying, let's give it one more try.
Yes.
And I wrote it as a duet. Krisirie, who I think is the next Rihanna coming out of Barbados, I think she's 27.
Right.
She might be 24. She has the most beautiful voice. She makes the music her own. It didn't really matter what I wrote on the musical score.
Yes.
She made it her own. She twisted it and turned it, put different emphasis on it,
Yes.
and she makes the duet really special. And I won't spoil it, but the song starts with us being in a very bad place in the marriage.
Yes.
And gradually, a song is only 4 minutes. So you've only got 4 minutes to go on a journey, moving from this terrible place to realizing how much you share in common.
Yes.
And particularly where children are concerned.
Of course.
There were wonderful times in most relationships.
Yes.
And the 4 minutes takes you through that, to them both realizing, let's give it one more try.
Indeed, yes. I mean, it can be, you can take inspiration from the song in all sorts of different ways, because you can think, is it like a revolving door? Like it's as if, like it's like myself here. My wife could be like quite a while ago, well, for many years before me hours changed at me workplace, I was coming in from work and she was going out to work because she works permanent night shifts as a staff nurse. So that was like, when you think of revolving doors, you're thinking person's coming in, the other person's going out. And that's what it went to my mind, so everyone can pick up a different message from the song.
Absolutely.
Which is wonderful.
Or in the Navy, we'd say like ships in the night.
Ships in the night, exactly. But it is a beautiful song. And like I say, Krisirie really, really does make it our own. And if people if you get yourselves over to YouTube, listeners, on Jamie Lonsdale's channel, you can watch the video for Revolving Doors as well, which looks wonderful in the lovely setting. And were you in Barbados, did you say there?
Yeah, we were.
That was wonderful.
More, we used her band. And
right.
And it was my first time specifically trying to write a pop song.
Right. Because it certainly is really, really good. It's quite delicate at the start, and then it's got guitar in, a nice bit of rock guitar going on and everything. It's got everything that you need for a successful pop song, Jamie.
And because it was my first attempt at a pop song.
Yes.
I wanted the algorithm to put the single into pop rather than classical. So that was the name of the game, was to try and break away from classical to pop. And I thought, well, it's no good. I must wear some suitable clothing for a pop band. Yes. And so, of course, I put on a blue necklace, which I sometimes wear on the beach in Barbados.
Yes.
And I cut my hair really short.
You did?
My children said, "Dad, what are you doing?"
But you all look the part. That is the pop star way. It's all to do with the styling, you see. Because
the trouble is, they're looking at me in the video as their dad, rather than somebody who's looking purely for the first time at a pop band.
Indeed, because it's like you've got to set the scene for people when they're watching the video, because you're not going to go on songs of praise and sing religious tunes wearing jeans and a tie-dye t-shirt and a baseball cap.
No,
and trainers.
But you can always rely on your children to hold you to account.
Exactly. But when you see when you're in the top 10 there, then they'll go, "Hey, you're quite cool, aren't you, Dad?"
I've not experienced that yet, but maybe I live in hope.
You just never know. You never know. Now, you have just recently performed at Pizza Express, the Pheasantry in Chelsea. How did the performance go?
I love the Pheasantry.
Yeah.
It's very intimate. It's on London's King's Road, Chelsea.
Yes, very posh.
Many, many singers have performed there over the last 50 years.
Yeah.
So it's got a great sense of history. It's a real honor to perform there. They've got a beautiful piano, beautiful lighting system. And about a year ago, they renovated it. So it's got a lovely look. It seats about just under 100 people. So it's very, very intimate.
Yes.
And the nice thing about it is that it's run by Pizza Express. Yes. So they open the doors at 6:30. We have to finish our rehearsal by 6:30. And the concert doesn't start till 8:00.
Yeah.
So they've got an hour and a half for guests to come in, have a pizza, have a few beers. And by the time we come on, hey, the audience are on side.
Yes. Great.
That you feel the warmth the moment you walk out. It's really helpful.
Yes.
Feel that warmth coming from the audience. and most of them come to every concert that I do there, so they know what to expect. And whilst I might have a new song, like I've just written a song called Dreams, which I enjoy singing probably the most of any song I've ever written.
Yes.
And so they hear the occasional new song from me, but the variety comes from my guests. So I've got several guests that I draw on from time to time. So it's they that bring the variety to the show.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that I've spoke to that do the Pizza Expresses. One in particular is Denise Pearson of the 80s pop group Five Star. She's done had success with concerts at Pizza Express as well, and it seems to be the way forward. Really, have a nice dining experience, and then you've got entertainment as well. I mean, what more could you ask for?
Absolutely, and I'm a great believer in a concert should not be too long. So the first half might be 35 minutes, and then I tell everybody they may need another drink.
Yes, why not?
So we have an interval of 10, 15 minutes, and then a second half, which is usually about 25, 30 minutes. And it's good to always leave the audience wanting more.
Yes, of course.
Than making it too long. So that's my sort of golden rule. And it's just lovely when they come back.
Yes, and I think the setting of the Pheasantry as well is good, the way it is all, the stage is there, everybody can see is performing. Unlike, I don't know whether it's the Savoy or the Ritz that they'll have a singer on, but everybody seems to be sitting all over the place and they can't see the singer because there might be a beam in between, or do you know what I mean? Like the seating isn't becoming of the venue, for a performance.
Yes, funny enough, I was at a dinner last night, and I realised that for one particular table, there was a lovely, he must have been in his late 80s and his wife the same age. And poor her, she could not see the singers at all. She had this, and that is the beauty of the Pheasantry. I have been lucky enough, a great friend of mine who sings with me in my concerts, Miranda Helt.
Right.
And she has a beautiful soprano voice, and she sings at the Ritz quite regularly. And she got me a table there, and I have to say, at the Ritz dining room, everybody can see her.
That's good.
But it's not always the case elsewhere.
No, that's it, because you want to be able to see the performers, because
it does make a difference.
Definitely, yes. You don't want to have restricted view. It's not like the theatre, in the cheap seats. You're all paying the same, so you should still have the same view.
Phil, I like to be so close, ideally in the third or fourth row back in the stalls. Yes. I almost like to be spat on.
Yes, yeah.
Then you feel really included in the drama. Yeah,
of course. But yes, I'm pleased that went down very well there at Pizza Express for you there at the Pheasantry. Now, do you have any future music or appearances you can tell us about?
Well, it's a long way to go, but I have a concert on the 3rd of November. Right. But it is in Barbados.
Oh, right, I see.
And
exciting.
I've been asked by this Canadian conductor to do a series of 4 concerts. We've had 2 of them. We sang the Fore Requiem with some semi-professional choir.
Wow.
Last year, we sang the Fore Requiem, and they asked me to sing the baritone solo. Now, I'm a tenor.
Yes.
So to sing the baritone solo is quite unusual,
Yes.
but it's not too low.
No.
And so it becomes a very easy sing for me.
Right.
And it's, if people don't know the Fore Requiem, can I recommend they have a listen?
Yes.
And it's absolutely beautiful. This time we're going to be singing the Mozart Requiem,
Right.
which is a lot more demanding. And I'm in it. I can only describe it. I'm in training for it, rather like an athlete. It sits. It's not. It sits as an A flat, G, and it's not. Singing it once or twice is fine, but the fact is, it sits right up there.
Right.
For all my solos.
Right.
And I want on the day it to sound like I'm singing it with ease.
Right. Yes.
Rather than a tight voice. You can always tell when a tenor goes tight.
Yes.
And, I don't want that to happen. So I'm really putting the work in.
Yes.
And there'll be a super choir behind me. And no doubt the other soloists will be fantastic. And we're singing in St. James's Church, which is the original church, the first church ever built in Barbados, although I think another church disputes that. But the original settlers came and built St. James's Church. And so it's a lovely sense of history. And I'm looking forward to that.
That would be absolutely wonderful, that. Absolutely, in a lovely setting as well. Now, do you have any difficulty when when you maybe singing in Latin and things like that? Do you have any difficulties with the pronunciations? How do you get around that? Because my mother she's a top soprano, and she has sometimes has a bit of difficulty with getting those words as well.
Yeah, Phil, you're so right. I find that if you go to two people, you get two different answers. And I start off with the attitude, hey, I don't know. How do you pronounce that? Yeah. And so I rely on the advice of a coach in London.
Right.
But I'm totally prepared to arrive in Barbados 5 days before the concert, have the first rehearsal, and be told by the Canadian conductor, no, it's not that, it's this. And the awful thing is, when you have practiced it,
yes, it's in there
25 times one way,
yes,
to try changing under pressure.
Yes.
When you've got a congregation, that is going to be fun.
You'll have to get it videoed and put that on YouTube. That'll be fun to see.
Yeah.
But yes, hopefully everything, all of your pronunciations that you've rehearsed are going to be a yes one. Yes, they're right.
Yes, quite.
Excellent.
And of course, it does make a difference because you've all got to be singing the same. So when the choir come in behind me and they're singing the same word,
yes,
it's rather relevant.
Yes, it has to match like a jigsaw, otherwise you're gonna look a right sore thumb.
Yes. Yeah. Why do we expose ourselves to all these risks?
Exactly.
But I think the thing is, we just have to do it. If you have the desire, the passion to perform, it's just something you've got to do.
Exactly. Yes, a risk a day keeps the blues away.
Yeah, quite. At least it makes us feel alive. I'm sure you find the same thing.
I do, definitely. Especially speaking to you, Jamie.
Oh, well, thank you, Phil.
Yes,
thank you. You make it very easy, I must say.
Oh, well, it's lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, are you releasing a Christmas song? Because, of course, you've got that Oh Holy Night. Is that going to be out for Christmas? Is a single?
And Oh Holy Night is already up there. So really, it's the whole album, the work of 2 or 3 years
Yes.
putting together. And one thing I'm really pleased, I wrote a song for my partner,
Right.
and
Lovely.
I've included it in the album, and it's called Mermaid. And she when she's in the sea swimming, she even looks like a mermaid.
Wow.
And I wrote it for her, and it's very nice because she said to me the other day, for her, it's the best song that she's ever heard.
Oh, well, that's lovely. Lovely.
And she didn't have to say that.
No.
And I know her well enough to know that if it wasn't true, she wouldn't say it.
Exactly. It's from
And
the heart.
I've included it, and I hope people will enjoy it. And whereas some of my songs, I do have a penchant for singing sad songs.
Yeah.
Singing jolly, jolly, jolly,
Yes.
full staff or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't really do it for me. A sad song, I love hearing it's the silences within a song that make it
Of course.
powerful.
The drama.
So there is a danger that I sing too many sad songs. Mermaid is at the other extreme. It's just an extremely beautiful song written for a woman that I love.
That's beautiful. All from the heart there. So everyone will have to, dedicate Mermaid to the one that they love. Definitely.
Exactly.
Indeed. Lovely. Yeah, definitely. I've got lots and lots of different, tones on your album there. Something for everyone there on the album Freedom. Now, you're not going to believe this, Jamie, but we've run out of time. So,
oh, shame.
It's terrible. So, it's just a privilege to have had you on the show this week, Jamie. And I'd like to wish you all the very best with your concerts over in Barbados, and also good luck with your brand new album, Freedom, which I know is going to fly off the shelves. And would you like to come on the show again in the future? Have I frightened you away?
Phil, just tell me when and I'll be there.
Excellent. Well, it'd be wonderful to speak to you. And if I don't chat to you before Christmas, have a Merry Christmas and a fabulous 2025, which will no doubt speak to you then as well. And finally, please could you introduce your latest single, Revolving Doors, featuring Krisirie?
Thank you so much, Phil, and I look forward to next year. And in the meantime, can I introduce my most recent single, a duet called Revolving Doors, featuring the most wonderful singer from Barbados, Krisirie.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me on the show, Jamie, and we'll speak to you soon. All the best.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Phil.